Everything in the way, yeah.
All right, I'm getting back to covering other teams because it helps me evaluate football, helps me understand my team, the Dolphins. We're in a big season. So I'm going to kick it off with the Bills. I covered them for many years, very in depth. About the last year and a half, I pulled back, just not enough time and energy. My team was in such a critical stage, and it was very difficult to kind of parse through that to reach the fans. And it took a lot of study and time and energy, and it just really wasn't. But now I feel like I'm more settled and I'm able to diverse my coverage, and I really need to. It's a lot of sanity, not having emotions tied. So since the Bills are probably the team I've covered the most beyond my beloved Dolphins, I'm going to kick it off with the Bills. For me, this season is all about Brandon Beane. I think he's been a phenomenal GM for the Bills. There's some been failures, but way more successes. They're tight in the cap. Bills are about -8 in the cap. And so Brandon Beane has to fill this thing out. Clearly, jumping over the hurdle of the AFC East hasn't been a problem. Some people last year said it was a down year for Bills. They weren't going to do well. That's not what I said. I said most likely they're going to win first place. I said maybe if the Jets pull it together, they could do it. That didn't play out. I thought the Dolphins and the Jets would be fighting for second place. But this, with Allen being 29 years old, and he's starting to enter that point where the body's going to start failing him. And he's going to have to transition away from what makes Allen best, is running that football, being that threat, and passing. So there's a small window here to finally get over that hurdle and to get Bills fans what they, and among many other fan bases, dream of, getting to the Super Bowl. So 5 years, 2024 to 2020, they've run the AFC East. That's clearly a hurdle they can get over. But this final hurdle, which they almost made with a 32-29 loss to the Chiefs, who the ref thing played a part. It was like a cherry on top. But ultimately, I thought coaching was the biggest problem, and then defense. I like Brady a lot. I thought he's a very good OC for you. Is what I've been billing for the Bills fans for years. Pass bounds, running that football. They did a great job. But Brady, his commitment, his obstinance to keep going for that third down QB sneak. I thought when they saw that it wasn't really coming off the way it had been, had just stuck with it too much. And that was a failing. I think talent-wise, some injuries and some kind of diminishing of the talent on the defense played a part. McDermott a little bit as well. But ultimately, this season is going to come down to one clear piece, and that is obviously staying healthy, getting some luck. That's always a thing. But defense. Now, last year, in the pass balance, Allen had very few turnovers. I think the least actually in NFL history, which is a big turnaround from him, the way he used to be. The offense, 9th in pass, 9th in rush, 2nd in points. Clearly, this is enough to win a Super Bowl. And yeah, you might need to add some things. I think a little bit on the offensive line. I don't think receivers is as big a deal as people say. Because you have Allen, and he opens up so many things. You've got Knox, and you've got Kincaid, and you've got Shakir, and you've got Coleman, and you got Samuel. That should be enough. But it's the defense. Really, you guys only gave up 225 points and 420 points on offense. That looks great. What you guys were able to do in the red zone was phenomenal. But when you look at it, the pass defense was 24th, the run defense 12th, points 11th. It was this bend but don't break type defense that had you where you're at and kept you being an elite team. But ultimately, there was too many points given up. This pass defense needs to be uplifted. The run defense needs to be a little bit better. So I'm going to be focusing on both this, what you need, what this offseason is looking like. And clearly, I think you guys are going to be a very good team, but it's not what it's all about. It's about getting to that Super Bowl before the window of Allen closes. So, division 5-1, almost lost to my Dolphins. Some things happened, a little bit here, a little bit there, and we could have beat you at home. But mostly that wasn't about you scoring points. There was some mistakes early on offense and the defense kind of folding a little bit later. There was injuries in this, but it always kind of keeps coming back to the defense. The rushing attack helped out this defense a lot, keeping them off the field, putting a lot of points on. But you cannot keep playing like that. Defense wins championships. You've got really everything you need on that front as far as the offense. This needs to be a very good defensive offseason, but there's a few sticking points, and obviously it starts with free agency. -8, you got to get yourself at least even or more if you want to add some free agents. But when you go over the roster, there's not a lot of maneuvering. There's some you can adjust. Allen's contract, he's making very little at $44 million. You can push it forward. He's going to be a quarterback until he decides to retire or some major injury happens. But then that would be the gutting of the whole team. So it really doesn't matter. So I expect him to put some money forward for Allen, maybe give him a little bit extra because he's underpaid at this stage. But then you got Cook, who was a huge piece for you. He wants big money, and he's looking to get between 15 and 20 million. And that's a lot to put on these books. Again, you could push it forward. But then there's Rousseau. With Max Crosby getting a $30 million contract, it makes Rousseau a big, big buy to keep him here. But you've got to. I expect Von Miller to take a massive pay cut or to be cut post June 1st. But you need to rectify these two things. But both, not really so much Cook. He's not making a ton of money. But Rousseau's on the books for $13 million because he's in the fifth-year option. So you can get a contract done with him and Allen, get yourself enough little money to buy some pieces. I expect this to be a draft-heavy bolstering of the roster with maybe a small piece here or there for free agency. You hear about Metcalf wanting to be traded. Getting DJ Metcalf on this team would be phenomenal. I don't know if it can get it done. So here is the outlook. I'm using PFF as a guide. You've got enough, like I said here, with Samuel and Kincaid and Knox on the outside and Coleman and Shakir and Cook and Allen and Dawkins and Brown. Edwards played nice for you. But when you saw those, the QB sneaks, the tush-push type thing, you saw that interior was collapsed. It didn't have the drive. I don't know exactly how Edwards did in that moment, but I'm not really a big fan of McGovern. He's getting paid a ton. He has a tendency to get bullied a little bit here or there. I think that's a weak piece for you. Torrance didn't have a great season. He had a pretty good rookie year, sophomore slump. I think he's going to rebound, and he has to. Maybe some additions on this offensive line would be necessary to get some depth here because you can't expect these guys to play all season like they've had pretty much for 2 seasons. It's been a big part of what you've been able to accomplish, but ultimately it's going to not play out that way. There's going to be an injury or two. So I do think you need to bolster this. If I was a Bills fan, I'd want a much better center than McGovern, and I'd be praying for Torrance to get himself on track and get some additions in the back end. You might have some guys there that I'm not privy to, but ultimately that's got to be something. The receiving group I do think is good enough, obviously tight end group. But look at this defense. Bishop was a rookie. He played okay in spots, rookie. He's going to have to take a big step forward. Rapp, you saw when he got injured, there was a lot of problems there. He's a little slow in my book, but he's able to play very well for you. Hamlin, I think, is gone. You're going to need to bolster that a little bit for a third guy. You can find those guys, but you got to hope that Bishop really takes a step forward. You spent a premium pick on him. Elam, he's not going anywhere. He's very expensive. It's going to cost about $4 million to cut him. He struggled. Will he finally step forward? And it can happen. No ignominy. was a guy who was terrible for us, and he had a phenomenal season last year with Washington. It happens that there's these late bloomers, but you can't really bet the house on it. So clearly, without Rasul Douglas, you're going to need to invest a premium pick on the cornerback position. Benford, he's going to be an expensive pick for you. Great pick, I think in the fifth or sixth round. He played well for you, had some concussion issues. But if he goes down, this cornerback group, I think you're going to need to spend 2 premium picks on this, or somehow find you money for a free agent to fill out this secondary. The front was very good for you. Rousseau. Oliver, though, is a little bit small. And this move to pass balance, which you guys have done a phenomenal job on offense, making that transition away from fun ball. Defensively, though, you need more bulk up front. Espinosa is a good hustle kind of guy, makes some big plays, pass rusher, but you're going to need a very good D end. And Jones, Daquan, he had not a terrible season. He had a pretty good season, I think, last year. Not as good as the year before. Hasn't been the same. He's getting older, and he's a ton. But you got a guy in the background you drafted last year. Dwayne Carter, he played okay for you. It takes a couple of years for these guys to develop. So maybe he takes a big step forward, but he's only about 305. I think you need, when you look at Daquan, he's 320. He's a big guy. You're going to need another big DI to offset the smallness of Oliver and to keep those linebackers free who are small linebackers. You're going to need to help the linebackers out too, because Milano, he's had injury issues. He's getting old. He's very expensive. Re-signed Bernard for a couple of years. He's played well. Last year was a little bit of an offseason. I think some of that has to do with the linebacker group ties the secondary and the front together. And when there's issues there, it really compounds the problems and the job difficulty of the linebackers. And it's not an easy job being able to stop the run and be able to cover. But you've bet on him, clearly. You got Milano, who's a guy to help you, but you need depth there. I'd expect some additions there as well in this offseason. So, Taron Johnson had an okay season, but you need clear help in the secondary, this linebacker group, and some support in this safety group. It's all about the defense. This offense is going to carry you. You can see with my Dolphins, offense can carry you very well against incomplete teams, poor teams, when you're home. You guys have the run game that finally takes advantage of your home field advantage of the ugly weather with the run game. But defense is the key. And so this has got to be a big offseason. I would expect that first round pick is going to be a corner or somebody in that set, or a linebacker, if somebody drops. There's not really a great linebacker class. You're going to have to find guys. So I don't think it's going to be a linebacker. I think cornerback, because if you look now, you're seeing some teams or prognostications that these cornerbacks are dropping. And the farther they drop, that means there's going to be more. So I expect the Bills to probably win the division again. But there's a lot of teams in the AFC that are looking to get better, and it's going to be a tough ride. KC has done some weird things with their offensive line. They've had to. They're a little broke. How do they play their cards? How do you stay healthy? But overall, I think the Bills are going to be extraordinarily tough, probably win the division unless some dramatic things happen. But they could see a step back and not go back to the conference championship if they don't resolve this defensive issue and really hit the draft in a good way. They have a lot of picks. Beane does a good job in the back end, and that's really what it's about. A lot of GMs, they'll hit those early first, maybe even second round picks, but it's those mid and late round picks that really fill out your roster. So that's what I'm seeing. I'm going to get back to covering you guys more in depth. This Bills team is at a pivot point, and how Beane plays his cards is going to be huge. So Bills fans, been a while, but I'm back full force. Curtis saying, be well. See you soon. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with aceperhead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.